read that scripture, Evangelist Graham, even looking at the pretext and the post-text of it, I would look at that scripture and I would say, this must be why it is that God is long-suffering. You know, because he knows, he remembers that, you know, how he made us, and he remembers that we're just dust. So that would be my rationale, being black, to say, well, this is why God is so long-suffering. But he flipped the script on me the other day, Sister Foster. He said, no, son, now, I'm going to let you see the obedience of dust. Now, I talked to y'all about the obedience of dust and how it is when the dust tried to be replicated by man, the dust was obedient to the voice of God. How it is that God took the dust of the ground to create man. So dust is obedient to God. So God says, that's not a verse for you to use to say I'm long-suffering. That's a verse for you to use to know what my expectation is of you. He says, I know that you are dust. And what I know about dust is that dust will only obey my voice. And since I know that you are that, I'm able to look beyond your flesh that fights against you and your spirit or your soul that's sometimes messed up, and I'm be able to look at the portion of you that I know is still obedient to me, and that's the part of you that I'll pull to the forefront. Y'all not catching it. He says, I'm not using this as a tool for you to be janky, but it's in fact a standard that I'm setting for you to come up to. That when I'm saying I remember that you're dust, I'm looking for you to obey me. So that's why Sister Foster, you know, your pastor been telling you this for years, but not for years, I feel like it's been years. But for months, I've been telling you for months that, you know, I don't want to hear folks say God knows my heart. Because that's what the scriptures say. Yes, I do. And he says, I know that the frame of you was created to obey me. So you can't disobey me. You can't stay in the bed when you're supposed to be in church and say, God knows my heart. Because that's an oxymoron to what your heart should be telling you to do. Wow. Because your heart is covered in dust. So the dust is telling you, get your lazy hips up and get in the church. So don't say God knows my heart, because you're lying to God.
How about that?
Maybe I shouldn't have ended that way. I should have ended on the high note. But the truth of the matter is, when I'm starting to say stuff like, God knows my heart, he remembers that I'm dust, he sure does. And he said, since I remember that you're dust, I'm looking for obedience. Because dust will not be manipulated by man. Dust will not, listen, God help, I got to get out of here. I'm done for real. Third close, this might be the fourth close, but I'm going to close it this time. God saw that when he created man the first time, the dust of man, Sister Foster, was the part that was obedient. It wasn't until his flesh showed up that the sin came.
Oh, that's good.
But when he was created
That's good.
as dust in the image of God, he was perfect.
Wow.
It wasn't until something covered the
There it
dust
is. That's the word, cover.
that he became disobedient to God. So what we've got to learn from that is this. We can't let anything, not even our outward exterior, hinder us from tapping into the dust of our being. God help me here. This thing was so good. I'm done. I ain't gonna say nothing else. I thank God. But if you didn't get anything else out of it today, we know that with God, that's the key. Nothing is impossible. So when these men, when Zechariah and the man that was born blind, and even Adam, and all these various ones, were in a state where dust was exposed, we saw that the hand of God came. So we want to be encouraged to know that with God, nothing shall be impossible. Come on, put your hands together, please.